Mary Duncan. I'm the director of the Paris Writers Group and the Paris Writers Atelier. And right now we are sitting in our atelier. And our atelier is located at 8 Rue de la Bûcherie in Paris, France. We've been here for about 2.5 years. And this is a place where the Paris Writers Group meets. And it's different from a salon where people meet to discuss books and literature and movie and art, etc. We do more than that. An atelier sort of infers that it's a working space, like jewelers have ateliers, fashion people have ateliers, and of course artists, we hear about artist ateliers. So here we have several functions. We meet, but we also do research here. We have some books here which researchers come. Our books are mainly related to Henry Miller, the American author who wrote Tropic of Cancer. We also have a dozen hours of audio tapes of Henry Miller being interviewed, which people come and listen to and which we've also put on YouTube. And one of the things that we have is this small book. It's called The Wisdom of the Lash, and it is done by Pauline Riaz, who wrote the book, The Story of O, which is one of France's most famous erotic novels written in 1954 by Dominique Ory. Now this book has a different title because the translator, Austrian Wainhouse, and the publisher, Maurice Girardius, were trying to evade the censors. And so they changed the name from The Story of O to The Wisdom of the Lash. Now the other book that we have here relates to Simone de Beauvoir. Now this book is called The Story of an African Farm by Olive Schreiner. Now the reason this book is so special is because in 1956, Nelson Algren, who was the lover of Simone de Beauvoir, sent this to her as a present. And on the inside it's inscribed to Simone, and it says, "For Simone, in hopes of seeing her and her city one day again. As ever, Nelson, May 1956." And so we're very proud to have this a part of our selection of memoirs and artifacts. And we have groups who come here, groups of writers who come with authors. This week we had Cara Black and Jake Lamar, and a group of 10 travelers who came and met here. So in a sense, they're also working. So people come here to learn as well as to meet. And it's become a space that has taken on its own life. And we feel like we have a special aura here because across the street from us, Simone de Beauvoir lived there from 1948 to 1955. And during that time, she wrote 3 of her most famous books, Second Sex, Mandarins, and Inseparable. And at the same time, she had 3 of her most famous liaisons, all simultaneously, with Jean-Paul Sartre, the philosopher, Nelson Algren, the American author who wrote The Man with the Golden Arm, and also Claude Lanzmann, the Frenchman who was her young lover, who was 17, 18 years younger than she is. He wrote or produced Shoah, which is a major documentary on the Holocaust, for which he is the most famous. And he credits her with helping him extensively on that particular project. And so on the street, we have other authors who've lived here, Restif de la Bretonne. We have Shakespeare and Company nearby, which adds its own element of aura and history, and of course, a myriad of writers who come and go from there also.
So my name is Sylvia Whitman and I run Shakespeare and Company. I took it over from George Whitman, who started it in 1951. And Mary was a great friend of my father's and one of my first friends who I met here at the bookshop. And so I was just thrilled when she said that she found a place on the same road, just on the other side of the park, on the side of Rue de la Bûcherie that no one knows about. It's a sort of secret, quiet little side of the street, and she found the perfect place because it's opposite where Simone de Beauvoir used to live.
That's right.
And I know that Mary said she was looking for somewhere in the area, and I know a lot of people who are looking for places in the area. And so I wondered, how quickly Mary would be able to find a place. But being Mary, she found a place very quickly with her determination. And I think it couldn't have been a better spot. So we're very happy to have that in just down the road.
Thank you. And it's been wonderful being here.
Yes.
And it's been wonderful also sharing some authors like Xiaolu.
Yes.
And
I was so happy to introduce you to her at our party, and no, it's lovely to have that kind of, what you do is so much more intimate and kind of putting writers with writers. It's such an interesting concept and something that I think Paris, is the perfect home for. And then for us, we're with a lot of people and with public, and so it's also a nice proposition to give to authors who are coming through Paris to join you guys.
It is. Thank you for this.
That's a pleasure.
And in the background, if you listen carefully sometimes, you can hear the bells of Notre Dame. So we're really in this sort of triangle of Mecca of Simone de Beauvoir, Shakespeare and Company, and the bells and setting of Notre Dame, which we feel is very special. One of the benefits and one of the highlights of the Paris Writers Group and the Paris Writers Atelier is the diversity of the group of people who meet here. There are many nationalities, languages, and the diversity of the work they do, novelists, nonfiction, poets, screenwriters, and with it they bring to us their own backgrounds and problem solving. Whenever someone has a problem, somebody else in the group has had a similar problem, and very often we can solve a problem on the spot, dealing with somebody's literary agent, or should they use black and white or color, or should they use go from a first perspective or a third perspective point of view of their writing. All of this brings continuity as well as diversity, and we all benefit from that. And I think that's one of the main assets. And being able to meet here in the atelier just furthers that, because it gives us a common base to begin with every time we meet. We've had Samuel Lopez-Barrantes, who has a new novel, Requisitions.
A recent atelier I had the honor of playing some music for and discussing Requisitions briefly, but the memory that I most associate that with, I had family friends from Chapel Hill visiting that came to this atelier. They'd never been to Paris before, and to invite them into this world that I'd only recently discovered that really felt like the same world I left many years ago in Chapel Hill. My parents are in theater, and it was a very artistic community. And to see them in the room here with Augusta, my wife, and with you, Mary and Max, and also older friends from Paris, just to see the different chapters of my life in a space where I also was able to perform some of the songs about those chapters in my life was a very special kind of fulfilling moment, because it's rare to see people from different parts of your life in one space, let alone when that space is in your favorite city and you get to play some music in it.
And I was just a girl, I was so happy alone. Now I'm losing touch with the Annabelle I used to know. In my heart.
And that was a particularly nice memory, just to be in a nice room of, I don't know, there's 20, 25 of us? 30 people, yeah, drinking wine and playing an intimate show the way I would only ever really play in my living room, because I was in a living room, and it's afforded me a intimacy and a community gathering that you can't really do in a public space. It was very unique.
And he also has a Substack, and we're finding that a lot of our writers are transitioning to Substack as a way to highlight and promote their own work. Jake Lamar is one of our novelists who visits here on a regular basis at the atelier. Jake Lamar's breakout novel was called Bourgeois Blues. It's an autobiography covering his childhood. And for this book, he won an award called the Lyndhurst Prize. Another book that has won an award is the Dagger Award for his most recent novel, Viper's Dream. Rosemary Flannry, who is a charter member of our group, also conceived of the idea of her book, Angels in Paris, with our group. And we followed the beginnings of that book to its publication, which is one of the thrills of being in the Paris Writers Group.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Flannry, and I'm the author of this book, Angels of Paris, an architectural tour through the history of Paris. And I'm a very proud member of the Paris Writers Atelier in Paris. And in fact, it's thanks to Mary that I really got started on actually writing the book. So it came out in 2012, and then a few years later in French as well, Ange Paris. And so why I wrote the book is that I'm a Parisian now. I really love the architecture of Paris. And doing the research on the angels was a way to learn also a lot about architecture, because I found them represented on all kinds of buildings, not just churches or chapels, but elsewhere, and all through the ages. I found them from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance, Art Deco, Art Nouveau, Haussmannian, and so on, all the way up to the 21st century. All right, so how I became a member of the Paris Writers Group. I'm one of the founding members, and I'm happy to say that it was, gosh, what was the year? Around 2005, I think. I was lucky enough to have a house that a friend would lend me to use in the summer. I invited some friends down. One of them was Mary. And well, we were talking about all sorts of things that summer. She said she wanted to start a writers group in Paris because she had had one in California. And I said, that's a great idea. You know, really, you should do it. And she said, well, you know, you should write that book you keep talking about. So thanks really to Mary and the writers group, I really did get started. I wrote the book. First I wrote a book proposal, and in the group there was somebody who knew of a literary agent who was particularly interested in books about Paris. And so once my proposal was ready, I wrote a query letter. She was interested right away. I was very lucky, I know that. And then I signed a contract and started writing the manuscript. I had already done a lot of photographs. So now, of course, I keep going over the years because it's just such a wonderful forum for so many things. I mean, it's very social, that's one thing. We've all made a lot of friends there. But also, if anybody needs advice on anything, somebody will happen to know, say, if somebody's looking for an illustrator, or somebody wants to change publishers, or could be all kinds of questions like that. And not only it is about us, the writers, but also Mary has hosted other people like photojournalists, war journalists, and musicians. And so it really is an atelier that is, I would say, also dedicated to the arts in other ways as well.
So I'm Meredith Mullins. I've been a part of the Paris Writers Group since, gosh.
Almost the beginning.
Which was what,
Well,
2000?
we were discussing that earlier. We think it's like 2008, but somebody's insisting it was 2006.
Yeah,
But,
something like that for a long time. When it was a lovely group of people. It's always been a lovely group of people, but the dynamic shifts, that people change, and Mary is the constant. Mary is the constant with her organizational skills.
And this is the infamous egg timer that we all laugh about, but which is very good at keeping time in our meetings. And everybody has 3 minutes. We turn the egg timer over, and the sand goes through the egg timer, and when it's up, the person who's speaking knows, and everybody in the group knows that their time is definitely up.
With her inspirational skills, and really just keeping a diverse group together for so long, you have to say kudos, kudos, kudos. So félicitations. Paris Writers Group is wonderful. I'm inspired when I go to the meetings where we're all together, particularly because everyone is so individual and has such individual paths. You learn things about the publishing world, you learn things about the challenges of writing, you learn things about what it takes to continue to be writers when we face these challenges. And I think as a group, we definitely support each other. I know, for example, you've given people guidance in terms of getting their work published. You have your own publishing company, which helps people to get their work out there. So you're very supportive of the group. But I think everyone else is supportive of each other in terms of helping and thinking of things.
It came out, I wrote it in French originally, and it came out in France, and then I translated my own book, and it was picked up by an American publisher called Prager, but they wouldn't bring out a paperback. And then Mary and her press, the Paris Writers Press, said, well, I'll bring it out as a paperback. So she did, so here it is, and I'm very proud of it. And I wrote a first book, I do oral history, and I wrote a first book about memories of GIs after World War II. And then I wrote about the war brides, and then I was going to write about the children, legitimate and illegitimate, of the war brides, and I should still do it. I think I should still, while these people are around, I can interview them, yeah, I should someday. So many projects.
I know.
Yeah.
We also are really pleased to have had biographers here, both serious nonfiction and fiction. Kate Kirkpatrick wrote the definitive book on Simone de Beauvoir called Becoming Beauvoir. Whitney Scherer told the love story of Man Ray and Lee Miller through her historic novel called Age of Light. We like it when people come by for coffee. Sometimes people tap on the window, and I open the window and there stands a friend or potentially a new friend. So this is one of the things we like about being a rez-de-chaussée or a ground floor atelier. We've also had Joyce Maynard, the novelist, here, and she was most famous partially for her affair that she had as a young woman with J.D. Salinger when she was 18 years old and a sophomore, a freshman, I believe, at Yale University. And she's written a series of novels. One is called Labor Day, as well as some others. Cara Black, who has written, I think, 18 novels about murders in Paris, and they each have a definitive name like Murder in Montmartre or Murder in Montparnasse. And she's also spread out and has a couple of novels dealing with World War II and a new character. Cara has also done workshops here with people who are traveling here during Easter week, and we've hosted them here in the atelier. Janet Skeslien Charles is one of our local writers who has written several books. Her last two books and her upcoming book deal with the American Library in Paris, which is a wonderful institution here, and I encourage all of you to visit the American Library in Paris. First one relating to the library was called the Paris Library, which dealt with the Paris Library during World War II, and she's followed up with two more since then. We've also had Xiaolu Guo, the Chinese-British writer. She was born and raised in China, and she came west when she was 29 years old and has settled in London. Has been here on 3 occasions with her films and her books. Her latest book is Call Me Ishmael, which is a feminist take on Moby Dick. And we've also had her show her films. One is about the Chinese Olympics in 2008, the Beijing Olympics. She interviewed peasants who had been dispossessed from their homes in order for the Olympic buildings to be built. One of our very first events, what we did because of their relationship to the American Library in Paris, was with some war correspondence. And Luke Mogelson, who's a regular writer for The New Yorker and has done major articles on the Ukraine-Russian war for them, has been here along with Matthieu, who is a New York Times war correspondent. And so it's really quite informative when we can sit with people like these two writers and discuss the war and the impact of the wars and how it informs their writing and their own photography. Laurel Zuckerman is one of our more diverse writers. She started out writing humor, and because of a family story, she spent a lot of time in research in the last dozen years attempting to have the actor, Picasso's The Actor, which hangs in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, returned to her family, who owned it prior to World War II. After dwelling for all these years in the subject matter of looted art and returning art, she is now hoping to return back to her great love, which is humor. Since you've been a member of the Paris Writers Group now, almost since its beginning, is there any moments or highlights that you remember from your participation or something that happened during one of the meetings that you remember?
There is actually. There was the moment when Rosemary was trying to decide how to organize her book about angels in Paris.
Yes.
And there were a number of different directions she could go in. And she said to the group, here's what I'm doing, and I'm not sure whether I should do it, I don't know, chronologically or geographically or whatever. And there was the most interesting conversation that took place in your apartment. And I think it was a helpful conversation. I don't know how Rosemary remembers it, but I remember that as, this is what this group is for. This is really good and really helpful. And in the end, the book, which at the time was just an idea in her mind,
Right.
It got published, it was beautiful, it was proposed in museums, it was a fabulous success. And I remember that moment because I think it was a really critical moment in the creation of this book.
Hello, I'm Cornel Mitra. I'm a veteran of the Paris Writers meeting. I'm a playwright, novelist, and sometimes I dabble in screenwriting. And my sign is Libra. I'm at the borderline Libra and Scorpion.
Hi, this is Cherylyn Parsons, who's a newer member of our group. And she has just moved to this lovely apartment. And she's going to tell us why she moved to Paris.
I moved to Paris about 20 months ago. And I moved here after running a large international book festival in Berkeley, California for 10 years. And I was midwife to many author appearances over the years, and I didn't have time to work on my own writing. So I ultimately left the festival, passed it on to others, and I came to Paris, initially with a writing residency actually in 2022, and then returned summer 2023 to actually settle here. So I have absolutely loved being part of the literary community, and the Paris Writers Atelier is a central part of that. It's embracing and interesting. The literary community is alive and well. This is yet again Paris in the 20s, but it's 2020 this time, not 1920.
One of our members, and you may have seen her on television, Adrienne Leades, is the host for House Hunters International. You may have seen her on the Housing Channel. Okay, Adrienne, it's really wonderful to meet you here. We don't normally meet in a cafe. And the reason I wanted to meet in a cafe for our filming of the Paris Writers Atelier and members of our Paris Writers group is because so many people have this sort of romantic notion of writing their novels and writing their books in a cafe. And you actually do it.
Yeah, I do actually do it, yeah.
You do, I think, 3 newsletters a week.
I do. Nouvelle lettre. It's a French word that I created and trademarked.
And trademarked,
yes. Okay, so yes, I do 3 nouvelle lettres a week. And on Monday, my piece is really only about life in France, from my perspective. And I usually talk about the things that I've done during the week, but also try to provide a lot of information. My point of view is that it's not about me, it's about the reader putting themselves in my shoes. So I have a method of doing that, which is by taking the I out of the piece.
Okay.
And just talking about things matter of fact, rather than from my point of view, although it clearly is my point of view. On Wednesdays, I do what we call a dedicated letter, and that is a sales piece. So there's usually at least one or more sales message. But because of the newsletter on Monday, it's sort of disguised in a way. People don't really realize it's a sales message. But because they trust what I say, we get a really good response. Okay, and the third piece I do is on Thursdays, and it's only about property, and it has a smaller mailing list because it's just people who only want to, consider property issues.
Well, yeah. Thank you very, very much.
Oh, it's my
We really
pleasure. I
appreciate
can talk anytime.
I know.
Put a mic on me and I'm happy.
If you'd like to know some of the out-of-way places to visit in Paris, then Heather Stemler is the person for you.
Sorry, I always wanted to do that. Hey, hi, my name is Heather Stimler and I write the Secrets of Paris website. And I'm a member of the Paris Writers Group, and I'm here to tell you about one of the many secrets of Paris here on the Rue Saint-Julien-le-Pauvre in the 5th arrondissement at number 8. Used to be a drop box for the resistance. Up on the 2nd floor, just where the lantern is, there was a room with just a bed and a chair where people could leave notes for the resistance they could pass between themselves. And it was also a place where if a resistance member needed a place to hide out, they could go there and stay. And it was run at the time by a Turkish couple, and today it's part of the famous Shakespeare and Company bookstore.
So we always enjoy having Heather because she always has something new to tell us about one of the secrets of Paris. This is Paul Schmidberger. Paul is we refer to as our in-house counsel. Paul is a graduate of Stanford Law School and has specialized in intellectual property, so it's very appropriate for the Paris Writers Group. Paul, tell us about yourself and your relationship with the Paris Writers Group.
Okay, well, I'm Paul Schmidberger. I'm from New Jersey originally, and as Mary said, went to Stanford for law school and am a member of the California Bar. I wound up in Paris. These kind of things happen, and have been involved with the Paris Writers Group for quite some time. I had my own novel published a while ago, and I'm currently working on a new one. As far as the Writers Group goes, I very much enjoy explaining the law to people. So I've really found my calling at the law school. And when people in the group have questions about the law, publishing contracts, or intellectual property rights, that sort of thing, I'm very happy to explain it in a way, if I can, that makes it understandable to someone who isn't a lawyer.
And what types of issues do the members of our group come up with? What are some of their concerns when the law is concerned?
Typically, well, often copyright questions, but before we even get to copyright, which copyright questions? Are we talking about an issue where French law applies, or will American law apply? Beyond that, publishing contracts, some defamation, distribution agreements, really anything. The writer puts his nose into everything, so everything can result, but does not necessarily result in a legal issue.
Some of our writers come to visit, and one of them came from San Diego. Kitty Morris wrote a book called Bittersweet. And Bittersweet is a nonfiction book, a family story of how her mother discovered in a small suitcase, and she followed up after her mother died, the diaries and photographs of her grandmother and grandfather from World War II. And she said she always knew the family had some Jewish blood in them, but they weren't really raised Jewish. And she went on this quest to search for her family roots, which went to the Champagne country here in France. And she put together this wonderful book called Bittersweet of the story of her family during World War II. And so having her here telling us about this journey that she went on was very enlightening, and I think it made all of us think about our own roots and where we came from. Richard Nahum, who writes a regular newsletter called I Prefer Paris, that's EYE, Prefer Paris, has become one of our staple members. And we can always count on Richard for telling us about the latest museums, the latest shows, and also places to visit in Paris, France, and around the world as he travels.
Not so much happening in the writing. Obviously, I still do my blog and twice a week, and I've been traveling a lot in the last few months, so I've posted photos and stories about going to Egypt, and I was in Catania, Sicily, I was in London, so it's been a very busy travel time.
One of our recent events here at the Atelier featured a woman that many people have known for many years because Adil Helier was the owner of the wonderful Village Voices bookshop. And recently she did a biography about her bookshop called Village Voices. And everybody who was anybody came to Village Voices. All the famous authors And we drank many glasses of wine and met many fascinating people. And so Adil Helier has now brought Village Voices to us in the form of a book. Her book shop, which closed in 2012, is now a living history by being a part of her biography. It's been a pleasure to share with you the writers from the Paris Writers Group and our atelier, as well as sharing some of the literary history of the Rue de la Bûcherie. We encourage you to come and walk along our small street and feel the presence of the writers who have been here. Simone de Beauvoir, Jean-Paul Sartre, Henry Miller and Anais Nin, James Baldwin, E.E. Cummings, Ted Joans, and many others. We invite you to follow our YouTube channel and see what's happening in our literary community on the Rue de la Bûcherie. Thank you.